Hello, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a shipping crate for a Vire engine, because many of you have realised that I'm basically the only reputable rebuilder of this engine in the world, and the problem is sometimes you may have need for a rebuild on your engine and you need to get it to me, possibly from a different country. I ship from and to all over the world with FedEx. So I've got today, just built this one for a Vire 12, it also fits the other engines, a shipping crate. I've knocked it up, it took a couple of hours, but what's nice about this crate is it won't hurt your back when you're unloading the engine. They can shift it around in the airport without hurting themselves, and it's going to protect the engine without being too heavy. So all I like to do is show you in stages, and I'll be pausing this video, how simple it is. So basically, if they want to inspect this in customs or take the engine out, instead of smashing the case up, you've just got 8 screws which you'll be marking in a different colour, and you take out 4 each end. I've just put these in temporarily, and with these screws you can lift the whole top off. You can build your own crate if you like, but the beauty of this is you might want to reuse the crate after receiving it from me or have it sent back, and that could save you a lot of customs charges. If you send an engine, if you import a new engine, you'll get custom charges on the new engine, but if you send me your engine to be repaired, you would only pay the customs duty on the cost of repairs, which could be a lot less for your engine. So I encourage you to make a shipping crate, something like this, if you're not in the UK. Send it to me, or I'll get it picked up on FedEx, and we can get it back to you without having to supply the whole new engine on exchange. It might save us money. So here I've got a 12 horsepower engine in, and this will be secured with just 4 bolts, which are 17 millimeters, and those can be wound down quite quickly. So now I've got a 17 mil, and these with a washer to protect the paintwork. Take them down into the bearers, and 1, 2, 3, 4, that's all that's securing the engine into the crate. So when you receive the crate, you've just got to take these 4 bolts off, and if this is on the ground, I won't illustrate here, you can pick this engine up in your arms, you can get your hands around it, which is much better than reaching down inside a box where the lid comes off the top. You could hurt your back. So 2 of you could lift this quite easily straight out. And I'll just pause the video. I've got electric hoist in my workshop because I do this quite a lot, and I'll hoist this engine up and I'll show you the construction of this box and the lid so you know how to build one yourself. Okay, just pause this. Okay, so I've just basically got my hoist here to help me. So I've got this bolt removed, which was 17 mil, and that will go straight up. And I'll just push that engine out of the way, and I can show you the woodwork. That's fine. So this box is constructed with a base plate and 2 substantial bearers, which are screwed on from underneath, 1, 2, 3 each side, and then I've closed the rectangle with some like 50 millimeter or so thick blocks, and these are important. They're also screwed from underneath with 2 screws. I'm using these screws incidentally. These are 50 millimeter long number 6s, and they're nice because they've got big heads. You can get a good bit of torque on them, and they've got a nice bit of length to them as well. So everything that I've done here, I've put white glue on just before I screwed it. So you cut it to size, make sure it's all going to fit, drill your holes for the screws, and then put some white glue between, and then screw the things up tight. Make sure it's nice smooth faces. And the dimensions of this is basically just a bit bigger than the engine. So the holes for the engine are 240mm apart, and they are 250mm wide. So long ways 240 and width ways 250. And you don't want this box to be any wider than these corners. And then the other thing I'd say is put a base plate on here, because it's good to absorb any fluids or water that might come out of your engine during transit. They won't want it in their delivery vehicle. But you can make this like a bumper. So if you give yourself like a 10mm overlap all the way round, so the base is wider than the rectangle of blocks, that does two things. It protects it in transit, so when they are bumping into things, it won't damage your cladding, but also it just makes it easier to fit and line up everything when you're cladding it later, because your cladding doesn't have to go right to the floor where it will get scratched and peeled off. It just goes down to the bottom of that. Now the lid is probably less work. You want on the front and back plywood which goes a bit higher than the spark plug, and the reason that you want the plywood is because they're going to be wanting to lift this engine box around somehow, and you want to invite them to do it in a safe way. So because these two screws are going through this block, which is nice and secure, it lifts the whole engine up safely. There's very little strength in the sides, but they're not going to lift it because you've given them an inviting handhold here. So this saves weight, and it's quite critical because FedEx don't like shipping anything which is over 70 kilos. So without a dyno start, you'll find that this is under 70 kilos because you're weight saving on the sides. So once you've got those two handheld front and back parts cut to fit, you then screw them on the box temporarily and put two battens between the top, 1, 2, and those can just be glued and screwed exactly the same gauge. This is what these do, and then those battens line up here and here. You've now got a good surface to clad to. So I've got here some 3mm plywood, which I got cheap. This was only a pier sheet, and you lay it over the side and put a pen down so you get the line. Use a jigsaw or something to cut it, and then I've just put white glue and a series of, you could use pins or staples. I've used small screws here. So that's basically all you have to make. So the dimensions which I've used, this block is probably a bit too thick. The thickness here is 45mm, but in my opinion this is far too thick, and you need it to go to the edge and support down to this central edge. So 30mm would be ideal, but because I've made it thicker, I've created a lot more work for myself. So I've had to make some recesses where the parts of the engine go in, like that's for the gear stick, that's for the oil filler, and that's for a dyno start belt if it was fitted. And the same is true of this front piece. I've used 45mm thick here, but if it was only say 20mm, that would be just as good, and I wouldn't have had to relieve this out for the flywheel. So overall my dimensions is 520mm for this main bearer, which is as long as any engine, and some gap at the front so it won't scratch. And the width of it overall is 280, but you'll have 3mm either side for the overlapping cladding, and on the front I've used 13mm thick plywood. So what I'm saying, the thickness of this plywood here is 13mm. The height is 44 centimetres or 440mm, and the way that I've cut these handholds out is I've drawn a square which won't interfere with anything underneath. I've planted sort of like 10mm holes with an electric drill, and then I've joined them up quickly with a jigsaw, and then deburr it because you don't want them getting splinters in their hands. You could put some masking tape or gaffer tape around here if you like. And finally, when you've done all this, make sure you label left, front, top, so it goes together in the right way. After they've removed this lid for customs inspection, say, you want to make sure that they get it down the right way. So I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to put some yellow paint on these 8 screws, and then I'm going to put a big sign on the top of here which will say to remove for inspection, just remove the 8 yellow screws, and I'll put a yellow thing, and that way in any language, if they get to customs and they want to look at this, instead of breaking the lid off, they can just do the easy reliable thing, and then when they put those back in, it's still got its strength, it's not weakened. So there you have it. That is a lightweight. It weighs about it's about 7 kilos, that box, and it's pretty bulletproof. So if you're expecting to order an engine from me, which is going to get delivered by FedEx, it's going to arrive in something like that. And you know, if it's an exchange engine and you need to return your old one, it's going to be simple, because you'll just have to undo 8 screws, lift the top off, 4 bolts, take the new engine out, put your old engine back in, and when you're happy, tell me to pick it up and I'll get FedEx to bring it back to me and refund you the exchange deposit which we had set up in the first place. So this is Nick from Vire Engines. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helps you, gives you more confidence if you're ordering from me abroad, or if you want to send me your engine to repair, you can build a box like this yourself. Okay.